Hello. What a delight to be with you on this cold and damp Wednesday afternoon as we go into webinar 9 for the D-TRO service. As always, my dream is what happens on the webinar stays on the webinar, but my colleagues tell me in the modern world you have to record these things and put them online. So I will be slightly more circumspect than normal. Well, what agenda we have for you today. As always, guys, we do have the chat active for one thing. I'm sure John Cooper will be along in a second to say that the Q&A is active and feel free to use that for your questions. Let's give that a go this time. We haven't always had the Q&A. But yeah, we've got a bumper crop of news for you. And I'm discombobulated by the fire files Toby thing in the chat. Great. Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. We're going to be hearing from the whole team today. So that's enough of me rambling on, I think we can safely say. More importantly now, let's go over to Gareth Tilley for an overview of the service after I do the legal latest. And that, Gareth, just shows you the importance of having an accurate agenda, I would respectfully suggest. So last time we gathered here, guys, we talked about timescales. And to be honest, the sticky area of new burdens has continued and prevents us from being able to get to that legal start date, really. Loads of work on that since we were last here. We were speaking to the local government association. We got feedback, quite detailed feedback from JAG UK. And now we kind of need to stitch all that together. We've updated our estimates in the last 24 hours, and we will get that across to the department that includes the local government, and they will make the call around the new burdens. I discovered that they have a maximum of 12 weeks to do that assessment, apparently, once we send it in. So that was a rough morning for me when I found that out. Hopefully they won't take that time. That's my wish. Just because they have that amount of time doesn't mean they will. So as soon as we have something worth saying to you around timescales, we will get it to you guys. Also, a little treat for you. We do have Martin Rooney, who is leading on the policy side, on the call today. So if you do have any, I did have to promise him that he wouldn't be actively involved in the webinar to get him to join. But now it's started, we can kick things off properly. If you do have any questions around the legal side of things, poke it into the chat and we'll see what we can do. That is more than enough from me, I think, Gareth. Can you just remind us of what the D-TRO service is? The devolved governments. So let's just answer that one now. Since the last webinar of any sort, we had a really good conversation with the Scots. So they are fully up to date on where we are with the service, and they've gone away to consider their options. Obviously, they're welcome to join D-TRO. They can do something of their own if they wish. They're conscious that it doesn't make any sense for things to change at the border within the same island. So it's the officers know what they want to do, I think, and it's for their politicians to consider. Haven't spoken to the Welsh just in the last few weeks, but it's a similar sort of position with them. You know, they know where they are, and we've had some good conversations with them. So yeah, it's a good question, Jim, and it's all kind of in hand, and everyone who needs to is aware of where we are and what the service is up to. Talking of where we are with the service, Gareth.
Thanks, Paul. As ever, we like to start these webinars just with a quick overview of the service. I'm sure most of you on the call know this, but we are conscious that we do get new joiners. So just at a very high level, it shows a really simple schematic of the service. So with the diagram on the left-hand side, you've got the local authorities, the TRAs, as we call them in our D-TRO language. It's an API first service, so there's an API to enable local authorities, TRAs, to publish to the service, to the database. And sometimes they do that on their own, and sometimes they use a digital solution provider, a software provider, to do that, publishing on their behalf. But there's an API there for publishing. And then on the right-hand side, we've got the data consume API. So it's a very simple two API service with a database in the middle effectively. And to support that, we've got a data specification as well. So what that means is with the D-TRO service, the key things we're delivering is a centralized database with all the TROs across the country, all across England, and they're all in a standard format, which enables people to take that data out to consume that data. People are aware that we run two different types of webinars. So this is our kind of general webinar, gives an overview of general progress. In concert, in parallel, we also run our technical webinars, and they're a lot more focused on the technical issues we get out of GitHub, stuff we get raised through our user research and one-to-one sessions. But in this webinar, we'll keep things at a higher level and give you a wider service overview. Thanks, Paul. That's all I was going to do as an update on the service or an overview on the service. Thanks.
Thanks, Gareth. Now, there's a couple of questions in the chat, some good ones actually. But before we get into that, this is the real magic of this webinar. We're going to hear from John Cooper about how public beta's going. So let's do that first, because the numbers are quite impressive, I would say, John.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. As you probably know, we went into public beta on the 24th of September. Therefore, we've just got nearly 2 months of data and experience of running. We are now open to all. That includes all traffic regulation authorities, all the digital solution providers, and any data consumer can sign up and consume data. They don't even have to be part of a company, they can be individuals. So we do that via our portal, and we are seeing some great change in the numbers as a result of having changed from private beta into public. The headlines on who is using can be seen here. So on the consumer side and on the publisher side, you can see quite a dramatic increase in both categories of user of the service. This is the number of applications that we have on the system. Some of these applications might be an application to do temporary orders and one to do permanent from the same TRA. But yeah, there's a good uptick in the numbers of the actual usage of the service. On the next slide, we can see how the numbers in publishing a day have gone up on average due to going into public beta. And here the difference is quite a lot. You can see that we're into over 300 a day. And at the current rate, it is more like 650 a day going in. If you add the temps to the perms, you can see that that's the kind of number that we're getting at the moment. And on the next one, on the consumer side, we're seeing more consumers, therefore more requests to access the API and extract data. And the data that they extract could be just to check, as we do occasionally, how many orders are in the service, but it can be to download particular orders or indeed download all of the orders. We offer a wide range of facilities on the API, and it's all there for anybody to go there and consume. Next one, please. So how has this affected the total number of orders in the service? As we got to the end of October, we had about 30,000 orders, but then in early November, we hit 50,000, and we are currently projecting by the end of November to hit around 65,000. We envisage a slight tail off in December due to the Christmas period, but then that will be also offset by more applications coming on stream and sending in orders. And we'll be able to update on how that's affected numbers when we have the next webinar, probably in the new year. So just looking now into it in a bit more detail. It's all very well, there's numbers of orders being sent to the service, but we've done some analysis on when they are sent to us, when are these orders in force? We've categorized this by temporaries and permanents. You can see here that from the start of private beta on the left of the horizontal axis, we started at 0. There was a steady increase then in temps, and also some permanents were added in. You can see how the number of temporary orders in force actually goes down at certain points in this curve. That's just due to the cyclical nature of when temps are in force. You'll also see a massive increase around the beginning of November in the number of permanent in force, and this was due to a substantially large, almost 20,000 orders for one TRA being submitted to the service in one day. You'll see then that the total tails off, and that's how that's affected by how the temporaries tail off their in force ability. If you just go on to the next slide, I've just isolated the TTROs because it does show some quite interesting trends. The greatest number of TTROs in force is always going to be around the date when you look for the information. So on today's date, we'll probably find the most orders of temporary nature that are in force. Going forward, the number tails off. But if we look at this again in 3 months' time, the tip of this will have moved to the right, and it just keeps on changing. I think just one more is to look at the mean duration of TTROs, because we were interested to know how long are the temporary orders lasting. You'll see that whilst there's a few, each bar, by the way, here represents a single TRA. They're anonymized in this graph because that isn't really important at who's doing what. It's what the absolute number call is. You'll see that it quite quickly tails off, so that the mean duration for most of them is under 20 days. And for quite a lot of them, it's even quite a lot lower than that. As more and more orders arrive in the service and we have more TRAs onboarded, we'll be able to get even more and better data insights, and we will happily report them back to you as we go through our webinar schedule. I think that's all from me. But any questions on data, please put them in the chat and we'll aim to answer them as we go on. Back to you, Paul.
Sorry, John Cooper, I may have missed it while I was looking at the questions and stuff. Did you have a slide there on how many authorities are submitting into D-TRO already? Or if not, do you have that number to hand?
We do have that. I just substituted in participants of applications as a proxy for that, but we can get the reinstate a number on actual TRAs. I think the number of TRAs involved is more like 85 are doing temporaries or permanents. That may have slightly gone up, but that was what it was a few weeks ago.
Thank you very much, John Cooper. Right, well, we have something a little bit different now. It's my great pleasure to welcome someone who's not been on one of these webinars before. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Isla Kilpatrick. She is the user researcher for the D-TRO service. She's going to be talking to us about the future of the service. Isla, how exciting. What have you been up to?
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so I thought I'd give a brief overview of what we've been doing in terms of looking to the future, exploring and understanding what should the future of D-TRO look like as a service. And to do this, we've run a series of 3 workshops. So to start with, we ran a whole load of expert interviews, stakeholders, to really understand the space, emerging technologies, etc. And then we fed that in and created these 4 future worlds. And we got the whole D-TRO team together and had some really interesting deep discussions around, okay, what could D-TRO look like within these 4 different speculative futures? And then we took all of that good thinking and ran a second workshop, the idea generation one. And this is when we started to think, okay, what should D-TRO look like rather than what could? It turned to what should. And we generated a load of ideas and we started to think about early roadmap for each of them. And then we have just wrapped up this week the 3rd and final workshop, which is the prioritization workshop, where we've kind of, as it says on the tin, prioritized those ideas that they've come up with. And the view is that we'll be taking those ideas and then translating them into a roadmap. So this whole work stream, which we've been calling D-TRO Plus, has helped us kind of shape, understand, and discover what the D-TRO team and wider DFT would like the future of D-TRO to look like. And it's all very exciting work, and I'm sure you'll be hearing a lot more of it in the months to come. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much, Isla. What a treat to have a little update from yourself. Now, always a pleasure to welcome John Harrod Booth to the stage to give us a little technical update. John, nice of you to join us in between your worldwide schedule of meetings, sir.
Thank you very much, Paul. Next slide, please. So, very limited update. This is the more general webinar, so we tend to go slightly more detailed on the technical webinars. Just as a state of play as it stands at the moment, so I think at the last of these webinars we had versions 3.4.0 and 3.4.1 live in our integration and production environments. Subsequent to that, we've then introduced 3.5. So that came into integration at the end of September and into production towards the end of October. And we released the documentation at the end of August. We have done, because we spotted some minor inconsistencies, and there were a couple of GitHub comments coming from users who spotted some inconsistencies, thankfully ones we'd already spotted. We did yesterday do a very minor bug fix to both integration and production. We decided to do this as a sort of hot fix rollout, rather than leaving it for a month to notify you and then do it, because really the number of changes is very small and not core to the model. We would take a different approach if they really were going to affect your operations on a detailed basis. Next slide, please. So current planning is that we're trying to move into a rhythm of doing releases on a 6-monthly basis. So that would imply that we would have a version 3.6 in the spring 2026. What I will say is that although we are constantly gathering requirements that either come from users raising queries with us or observations about things we need to do to the service from a data perspective and the data specification perspective, there aren't any major changes that are foreseen. That we do have a raft of small ones. So I think the expectation at this point in time is that a 3.6 release in the spring is not likely to be significantly different to what we have at the moment. One of the things we have discussed is over the course from private beta now through into public beta, we've had various versions, and TRAs and data service providers have been providing records in against those various versions. And therefore, we have in the production database, we have records that relate back across multiple versions. And we've had a discussion. We have a position paper that's available. It's available on the GitHub resource. So if you have access to GitHub, look at issue 119. But we also discussed it at a newly reformed advisory group meeting, which first met on the 7th of October. And that was discussing more what we would do to bring the records up to the latest version, rather than the precise process that we will go through. We need to develop that process, but we would aim to bring that process in broadly in alignment in the spring with the 3.6 release. Just a little further note on the advisory group. So we had a group historically, which I think was called the experts group, if I remember correctly. And that's been sort of reinvigorated in a different guise. The advisory group is invitational group where we are calling on representation from the major service providers and a selection of local authorities to really help shape and guide the way we move forward. And they will have a role to play in the future. So when we start proposing necessary changes to the service, they'll have a voice in advising us what to do around those. And I think that's probably all from me. So back to Paul.
Thank you, John. Okay, now it's time for the real fun team. It is Q&A. So I get on your mute buttons, guys. I will be referring to some of you here. There's a question from Ian Gregory around not that button, Gareth. There's a question from Ian there around we were talking about this in a street manager context just this morning, actually, the whole issue of mayoral regional mayors coming on board and the local government devolution and the changes to the unitaries and the districts and all this stuff. I have had this question before, Ian, and I think I know what you're getting at. I did speak to at least one of the digital service providers about this, but I mean, worst case scenario, I guess it's not really for me to say this, but you know, if you get into a contract with somebody, then that contract's going to move to one of those authorities, isn't it? You know, if you're breaking into 2 or 3, so you've not lost anything. You know, that will move with, let's just say you've got some asset management software to move out of D-TRO. You know, one of the authorities is going to take that asset management software with them, I guess, and the other authority might need to, you know, have a new contract put in place, stuff like that. So I think it will be the same with D-TRO, to be honest. So I don't think, and I'm welcome to take feedback in the chat, but I don't think we're putting in any particular exemptions or changes for the whole area of devolution. But I'll tell you one thing, it's going to keep us busy on Street Manager for months on end with that stuff. Right. John Harrod Booth, Wayne asks, what is happening with roads with no TRO? I mean, I suppose there's an easy answer there, isn't there, John, which is not a lot, but I was telling somebody cleverer than me about the D-TRO service the other day, and they happened to know a little bit and said, "Oh, well, what about roads where the speed limit is 30 or national speed limit?" And I was like, "Ah, yeah, that's a good point. Well made." Anything to add there, John?
I'm glad you have come to me. I suppose you could have gone to Martin on the policy side, but we'll keep it friendly for the moment. In the current scope of the D-TRO service, the bounds of what you as data suppliers have been asked to supply fits and is driven by the requirements of the Automated Vehicles Act 2024 and Section 93 and the various bits of the Road Traffic Act that mentions. And DFT is very aware that that does not provide a full image of things that might affect the road network or regulations across the whole network. So one of the points of discussion that we had with the aforementioned advisory group was, well, what are the other things that might be in scope of an evolving D-TRO service in the future? Where we've got well-lit streets and these sorts of things, that's clearly one element, national speed limits. But there are other forms of legislation that can affect the road network, so development control orders, Police Clauses Act, and so on. And there are a bunch of non-TRO things that we're also aware of. So they're all in consideration. But for the moment, I think DFT are holding fire, saying, well, let's stick with the requirements we've got at the present time.
Thank you, John. It might actually be Martin's time to shine the question after next. Now, Simon asks, do we have an idea of who the consumers are? I certainly hope we do. If our stakeholder engagement manager doesn't know, then who does? Gareth Tilley.
Hi, yeah, we've got quite a broad range of consumers. As John was saying, some of them are just kind of single individuals and smaller companies. And we've been working on the data consumer right the way through to larger organizations like Google. So it is quite a broad range, and there's quite a few interesting use cases coming through as well. We're looking to Now we've moved into public beta and we've got a richer data set, we're looking to further enhance and further understand those use cases a lot better with data consumers. And that's something we're going to look to do in the new year, very much so. And if there's any local authorities out there who have got use cases which would involve colleagues in local authorities, we're really keen to track those. So any use cases where a local authority will be publishing to the service, and then say their urban traffic management control system or other systems or services within the local authority will be then consuming or using that data. We're really, really keen to track that and understand that. I hope that's nice answer, Paul.
Thank you, Gareth. John says LAs require some real guidance on timescales and not gibberish. Thank you, John. I suppose the difficulty is until we can get the new burdens assessment in and get the clock ticking. But I suppose let's say that they take the full 12 weeks for the sake of argument. So that's going to be December, January, February, and then we would, as always, we've always promised to give 12 weeks to the industry after the regulations are laid. So let's say that we can do that slickly, so that we would need March to do that. So then the 12 weeks could be sort of April, May, June. You could be looking at a world, guys, where it's like the 1st of July, I suppose. We would be looking off the top of my head at a go date. But my dream is that the new burdens guys get back to us within a shorter timescale than that, and that frees us up to do everything sooner. What I've been saying to the legal guys and the policy team is, you know, if the 1st of that month drifts by and we can't do it, then we just move to the 1st of the next month. It's not like some other things where we would say, okay, we didn't make the 1st of April, we're going to now move to the 1st of October, which is how we've sometimes done it with streetwork stuff in the past. So yeah, the 1st of whatever month we can get it in is basically the answer. Similar question there from Tim around the timescales. Right, okay. We answered that one. Okay. Yeah, that's the idea, Ian, in terms of exemptions. Oh, there you go, John Cooper, thank you very much. No problem, Jade. Can you please clarify what the ask to the Burdens Committee is? Yeah, sorry, that's a fair question. The idea is, do you need to compensate authorities for a new burden that you're putting on them? So we've had the detailed conversations with the LGA and the Joint Authorities Group for Streetworks, the JAG guys. They've given us some numbers and a proposal. We should be compensated with X amount of money. The DfT have got their own figures based on the costs of software and that kind of thing, and we put all that over to the new burdens guys with our argument and our suggestion of what it should be, and then it's for the new burdens guys to make the assessment basically. So the ask is, first of all, is it a new burden or not? And when you've got half the authorities already with software, many of which they had before D-TRO was even an issue, is it a new burden? That's one question. And then if we agree that it is a new burden, how much should be paid? So we've done all that work around, temp software costs X and perm software costs Y. And then it's for 3 years, Jade, is the requirement. That's the idea, that if you bring in a new burden, central government pays for 3 years. So it could be 3 years worth of software costs paid to organisations, basically. And then you get into the weeds of, does it go to everyone equally, or do you pay the people that needed to get software and not those who already had it? How is that fair? If so, how do you prove who had software and when they got it? How does all that part of it work? So it's quite complicated, but that's the gist of it, basically. Right, okay. Yeah, I'm sure we can do some use cases in a future webinar. That's no problem. Right, we've now got to the questions that I'm reading for the first time, so forgive me for 1 second, guys. It has been confirmed that LAs are not being provided any new funding for this requirement that is being imposed on them. I would disagree with that, John, because that's the whole issue that we need to settle with new burdens. I mean, the bit that I don't understand is why we're doing this at this end of the process when we're already into public beta. I thought this should have happened like a year ago or whatever, but apparently that's how these things work. But as soon as we know something, we can tell you where we are with the new burdens issue. Yes, we have. I've got a whole thing from Jack. It was Sarah Widows that led on this for. She's from Norfolk. She led on this for the TRAs. And there's a whole, formal email that's gone to the DfT with a whole raft of proposals and amount of money. Has any survey been done of LAs and whether they have to purchase 1, 2, or 0 new software packages? Yes, Philip. JAG had some figures around that, and we know we've been given customer lists of the software providers as well over the months. So we've got pretty good estimates of who's got what software and who hasn't. John Cooper, did you want to just throw out some numbers there to the best of our knowledge?
Well, there's the 85 approximate number of TRAs involved, and I did just put in a breakdown of how that was. Most of them doing TTROs, a smaller number doing perms, and an even smaller number doing both, but roughly a dozen doing both, 77 doing TTROs. We did some earlier survey work on which of those are with DSPs. We do know that most of the active authorities that are in public beta are working with a DSP. So there isn't really much further breakdown that we can do with that. Obviously, we do maintain that it's possible to participate in D-TRO without a DSP. You might need to be kitted out with some suitable programs that will enable you to process the data. But at the moment, the ones that are participating are with different DSPs. There is a participant list of those that were in private beta that's on GitHub. We aren't at the moment issuing like a public beta list because it's forever expanding and it will eventually include everyone. So we aren't circulating any more lists of who's actually in, but you can see by looking at the data which authorities are in.
Thank you, John. Yeah, your numbers weren't massively different from the numbers that JAG UK had either. There's a comment here rather than a question from Scott. There's also a resource issue of plotting temporaries and the burden of this. I mean, you're welcome to email me, Scott. I guess I struggle with that one a little bit because, you know, if it was some burden, then I'm not sure why dozens of authorities would have purchased various temporary TRO, you know, creation modules. They must have thought that it was an efficiency saving and a benefit to them long before D-TRO was even, you know, in the beta stage to be getting that software. So they don't consider it a burden. And I would have thought that in terms of resources, you know, when I was Streetworks manager at Westminster, there was one fellow that wrote out temporary traffic orders, and I would have expected him as part of his workload to incorporate using the software. You know, so it's just a change of what resources are doing rather than additional resources, I would say. Easy for me to sit up in my ivory tower and make these pronouncements, I know. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're big fans of the chat, not so big fans of the Q&A. Do feel free to use that in future webinars. There we go. Tom says a new resource issue is for recording start stops for all temps or perms. Yeah, thank you, Tom. That's why that's not going to be a legal requirement for 2026 like D-TRO. I haven't got the legal requirement start date for that, but yeah, I'm glad you raised that, Tom. That won't be on the same date. So let's get D-TRO in, let's get used to it. We need to build the link between Street Manager and D-TRO to be able to get the start and stop information in. You know, we can make it optional, start using it, and then bring that in as a legal requirement a bit later. To be honest, guys, I want to do the local government devolution stuff in Street Manager first, and then move on to this. So it could be a while away. Thanks, Tim. The DSPs do not cope with all scenarios which are done outside the DSP. I am happy to look at examples around that, and I'm sure the service providers would as well. We do not currently digitize temps. In addition to creating and following the procedure for temps, we now need to digitize using new software. Yeah, I take the point, Scott, but I still think that it's just a module from a software provider, and rather than doing it in Word or whatever, you're doing it in the software. And again, many authorities have purchased that software because they think that there's benefits to doing so and efficiencies. Hang on, I'm getting told I'm not correct. Hang on, 1 second, guys, 1 second. Yeah, thank you, Mick. Like I say, it's easy for me to sit in my ivory tower and say, oh, you know, it's just this and that. But that's fair comment. Let the team and me take that on board and make sure we've got a full understanding of it. I'm quite happy to be corrected there. Okay. Thank you to everyone who has commented. Before we go, we need to hear from Gareth around the engagement we've been doing. Who are those happy faces? Gareth Tilley, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I think it's recognised that John and I add a touch of glamour to every event we attend. It's been conference season over the last few months, and John and I have been out and about spreading the good D-TRO word. So we were at Highways UK at the NEC. We saw a lot of folk there. It's really good to see some local authorities as well and speak to them and have a good catch up. In Manchester, we did a double header. So we did traffic and parking on the 5th of November. And then the following day, we did the Transport Technology Forum in Birmingham. And both events were really well attended. And it was a really different audience and a really different type of event. And the kind of speakers we were alongside were quite different. So that was really nice to do those two events back to back. We haven't got anything scheduled in the near term. I will be on the Transport Technology Smarter Parking group tomorrow morning. I'm going to be just giving a quick D-TRO update on that. But in terms of conferences, we'll look forward to seeing you in the new year. And if there's any events that you think people think it would be good to have us provide an update on D-TRO, and we'll just let us know. We're certainly happy to consider any engagement in that manner. I just wanted to end on, most of you know this and have seen this slide before. So we've got a whole host of ways to get in touch and provide information. It's something that we're kind of really focused on as a programme. So we've got our website, which is dtro@dft.gov.uk. That's our landing site that enables you to create an account and onboard to the service. Accompanying that, we've got an email, so that's our general purpose email. We've got a service team who do the first line of that response, and we look at those every day. So 30:30, we've got a triage call to look at any emails that come in. We also look at any issues raised on our GitHub page as well on that call. So GitHub has got two purposes. It's got an open issues channel where everyone can see any issues raised by the community, but it also holds all our technical documentation as well. So our technical specification is publicly available and free to download and access from our GitHub page. We've also got a Transport Technology Forum page that's geared very much to local authorities, to TRAs, and that's got our guidance, our general guidance. It's got our YouTube channel, our playlist, where this, alongside all our other webinars, are available. It's also got kind of our FAQ, so a whole host of useful information for local authorities. In addition, we've got our newsletters and our regular appearances at conferences, as I've just said. So we've got this mailing list. Everyone on this is on this webinar will be on our mailing list, and you got the invite because of that. If there's anyone who wants to join, any of your colleagues that want to join, just if they use the email, then we'll add them to our mailing list as well. And there's our new QR code as well for our new website, which basically lists everything I've just walked through. Thanks, Paul. That's what I wanted to run through in terms of engagement. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Gareth. A rich theme there in the comments. I wonder, Gareth, if we might want to look upon your return from Australia into some case studies, around people, real life scenarios of people integrating software and what it involved. There's a rich theme of stuff in the chat, as I've already said. We've got a man from TNITS, so that's lovely to see, a real example of joined up thinking there. I'm going to learn about parking suspension TTROs straight after this call. Tim, but writing a TTRO for a year and then using it in the evening is a scenario that I think software providers can handle. It's just a matter of getting the information out to the public, I would say, using the starts and the stops. Okay. Great feedback, everyone. We could talk all day about this stuff. Thanks, Scott, there. Really interesting. I'll carry on reading after we have finished. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care of yourselves and see you for the next webinar in 2026. Seems too early to be saying have a Merry Christmas, but that's where we go. Take care of yourselves, please. Goodbye.